The terminology around EVs can be pretty confusing, so today I'm going to break down the difference between kilowatt and kilowatt hour and try to explain it to you in basic terms. So welcome back to All Cars, y'all. I'm John, and if you are an EV neophyte like I am, EVs can get a little confusing. And part of the reason is I keep trying to draw a direct comparison between a gas car and an EV. For example, tank of gas flows to an engine that produces a certain amount of horsepower, and based on how you drive and the efficiency of that drivetrain and the aerodynamics and everything else, you get a certain efficiency out of it, miles per gallon. Most of the time when I read reviews of EVs, I'm looking for the range. I'm not really concerned about how big the battery pack is or how much power it makes, the kilowatts. I want to know what's the range. Most EVs have very peppy performance, so I'm not really as concerned about that. But the deeper I started to look into it, the more confused I started to get. And I realized there's two, possibly three things I needed to change my way of thinking about. So I might use some analogies here about water and explaining it that way. If you're an electrical engineer, please don't flame me in the comments, but it helps me visualize it. And so the first is we're going to start with kilowatt hours. Now, we're all familiar with the concept of a rate, a miles per gallon, miles per hour. That was my problem. I was trying to make kilowatt hours into a rate, and I couldn't get it straight in my head. That's because kilowatt hours is a capacity. So that battery pack under the floor of your car, that battery pack is rated for a certain number of kilowatt hours. The Audi e-tron, for example, has a 95 kilowatt hour battery. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 has a 77.4 kilowatt hour. And in broad terms, that means that if you took that Hyundai and you drew 1 kilowatt out of it, it would last 77 hours, broadly speaking. But it is the total capacity of the battery. To a water analogy, that is like a bucket of water, and is it full or not? It can only hold 77s, and then it drains down. The second one is kilowatt. Now, kilowatt is a measure of power, and you can imagine, because it has power in it, it's like horsepower. As a matter of fact, there's a direct conversion between them. 1 kilowatt is 1.34 horsepowers. And so when you look at most vehicles sold here in America, they list a horsepower rating for it. Some of them include kilowatt at the same time. There are parts of the world, like our friends down under, they've always used kilowatts, even for gasoline and diesel cars, as you can see here with this Ford Escape down there. But we here in America, we're used to horsepower, so they try to present it the way we want to see it. And like an engine, it doesn't produce that power all the time. It's peak power. It's an up to power. But EVs tend to feel very peppy because they produce almost all their torque immediately from zero. So why are the motors so powerful? Well, part of it is I had to change my way of thinking, that I thought of the battery pack as pushing the power. I have a kilowatt hour, it's pushing, right? No, but it's the motor and how much it can produce and pull the power from the battery pack. Pretty simple. Think about, we're all familiar with the old-fashioned incandescent light bulbs. A 20-watt light bulb is less powerful, less bright than a 100-watt bulb. It's the same concept, and if you use our water analogy, if you have a hose and the water's kind of dribbling out of it, it's low power, but you crank it up and it comes out and you get more power. That's what this really is. The other thing that kind of got me confused was when you start to think about recharging the battery, because the battery rechargers are rated by power. So whether you're looking at, say, a 20 kilowatt charger or a 350, that's the maximum amount of power it can push back into the battery. You notice it's not a rate, it's just a power rating. So it's, to me, almost backwards. But once you realize kilowatt hour is capacity of energy and kilowatt is the power that you're getting from it, specifically from the motor in this case, You can look around appliances at your house and they actually are rated for wattage. It's just like kilowatts, right? It's a fraction of a kilowatt. It's how much power they're going to be using. It makes it that simple. So I hope this helps a little bit. I'm going to do another video on what MPGE is and how it relates to really try to compare the efficiency of different vehicles, but that's a video for another day. Appreciate you being here, my friends.